In collaboration with the Alameda County Bar Association, this is Love Thy Lawyer, where we talk with members of the ACBA about their lives and legal careers. I'm Louis Goodman, the host of the LTL podcast, and yes, I'm a member of the Alameda County Bar Association. Welcome to the Alameda County Bar Association and the Love Thy Lawyer podcast. I'm Louis Goodman, hosting. She is licensed in both state and federal courts. She serves as vice chair of the criminal law section of the Alameda County Bar Association. And in that position and through her practice, she helps influence our community's practice of law. She believes that diversity, compassion, and empathy are our greatest assets and strengths. She clerked for the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. She has earned numerous professional awards and is a member of the National College for DUI Defense. She has worked tirelessly on behalf of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. She travels, she spends time with her family, and, perhaps most impressive to me, she is an avid and accomplished surfer. Manjula Martin, welcome to the Alameda County Bar Association and the Love Thy Lawyer podcast.
Thank you, Louis. It's great to be here.
Very happy to have you. We certainly enjoy having attorneys on, especially attorneys who are active in the Alameda County Bar Association and contribute so much to the profession and to the community as you do. Where is your office located?
Our office is located, we actually have two locations. One is 505 14th Street in downtown Oakland, and the other is 717 Washington, which is right across the street from our stomping grounds of Wiley.
What type of practice do you have?
Criminal. Only criminal.
Now, I noticed that on our video it says Lamano Law. And how do you have that moniker?
She's my boss.
Great.
Yeah, she's great. She's awesome. I'm happy and lucky to work with her and for her.
How long have you been practicing law?
Since 2008.
And
so
where are
quite
you?
Some time.
Yeah, where are you from originally?
Well, that's kind of a long story, but I'll keep it short. I spent most of my young childhood in England, moved to Los Angeles, where my mother was originally from. Honestly, coming from cold, rainy England, that was like moving to paradise. I know nobody says that about Los Angeles, but that's how I felt. And then I moved up to the Pacific Northwest for a little while and then back down to Northern California, where I went to high school.
So how long did you live in England?
Until I was 10.
Now, when you came to Los Angeles, did you speak with an English accent there?
I did. I had a Cockney accent because I lived in the East End. So I don't know if anyone watches the show The East Enders, but I think a lot of people that watch that show have to have the subtitles on because that accent is so strong that it's very difficult to understand. When I would come visit my grandmother, she would actually have to ask my older sister what I was saying.
So did you have to sort of consciously work to lose that accent?
No, I guess accents stick at 14. So I've been in this country for 4 years, and by that time, my California accent had firmly stuck.
Well, where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Benicia. Go Panthers. That's just north of here.
And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was great. Benicia High School was great. It's actually a really good public school system, one of the best in Northern California. I had a very positive experience in high school. I did some drama. I did some sports. I had a wonderful high school experience.
What sort of sports did you involve yourself in high school?
I did a little bit of basketball and I did track, mostly long distance.
Now, we'll get back to this, but I know you're a surfer. Did you learn to surf when you lived in Los Angeles, or did that come later?
Yeah, no, that was in LA. So my mother, she was a bit of a gidget. She surfed in the 60s with my grandfather. So as soon as we moved back to California, she just basically threw us in the water and said, "You're going to be water babies now." And we started body surfing, and then we got boogie boards, and then I graduated to the stand-up hardboard.
After you graduated from high school in Benicia, where did you go to college?
Actually, I went to college. I started out at San Francisco State, And I moved over to Cal State Hayward, which is now Cal State of the East Bay, because I, at the time, was competing in Taekwondo. And my teacher started a program at Cal State Hayward, and I really wanted to be on the team. So it was a very intensive experience. We'd have 2 practices, one in the morning and one in the evening, and then we'd go around Northern California and compete.
Did you enjoy that experience?
I did a lot. I enjoyed Taekwondo a lot. One of the interesting things about Taekwondo is it's full contact. So for a lot of women, that's extremely scary and uncomfortable. So it was kind of good being uncomfortable with that because, it helps you become comfortable with things that make you uncomfortable.
Do you think that that's a skill that you can take into the courtroom?
Yes.
I mean, not the
Every
full body
day.
contact, but feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do, because, court, sometimes it can go along very normally, and then sometimes all of a sudden there's this curveball and you become very uncomfortable very quickly. So you have to keep your cool head and stay comfortable.
What did you take up academically in college?
I actually got a Bachelor of Arts in Multimedia, and I was pursuing a minor in art history, but I had been in university long enough, and I just wanted to graduate. So I did graduate with that Bachelor of Arts in Multimedia.
And you graduated, as we call it here in Hayward, from Harvard on the Hill.
Exactly. I loved Harvard on the Hill. I loved Hayward State. It's great.
Ultimately, you went to law school.
I did.
Did you go directly from college to law school, or did you take some time off?
No, I took some time off. I decided that there was a lot more out there in the world than what you would see in books. And so I traveled extensively. I actually worked in the restaurant industry all through undergraduate, and I was a bartender. And so I was able to get funds together and then go on extended trips.
How long did you do that for?
Several years, quite a few years.
So how much time did you take off between college and law school?
5 or 6 years.
And during that time, you were working as a bartender and saving up some money and then going abroad?
Exactly. I would pick out new destinations, and while I was saving money, I would research them. And then I would go on these trips, that were anywhere from 6 weeks to a couple months. My longest trip was to India for 4 months.
Now, you have some Indian blood in your background, is that correct?
I do. My father is from India.
What did you think of India?
Very complex question. There are some amazing, magical things about it, and there are some really difficult things about it.
Yeah, I've been to India myself, and I agree completely. Okay, so ultimately you ended up going to law school. What made you decide to do that?
Well, my mother was very, very politically active. She was part of the free speech movement. My father, he moved to England when he was 18, and they impressed upon me the value and worth of justice, about how you can make a difference. So I knew I wanted to do something where I could give back to the community. I knew that was very important to me.
So did you start thinking about law school after you had graduated from college?
No, it was before. I went back and forth a lot about med school and law school. If you go to medical school, you're in school for a long, long time. And as I said, there's a lot of math. In some ways, I had a better support system if I would have gone to medical school, because I am surrounded by doctors and scientists. But I decided the way that I could make change was to go to law school. I decided that was a better path for me.
So what did all these doctors and scientists think when you told them you were going to go to law school?
They said they were very happy, and they said finally, because they were getting tired of me bartending and traipsing about the world looking for waves.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to Golden Gate, public interest law school.
And how was that experience?
Well, I have to be honest, the first year was not very fabulous. But after that, you kind of get the hang of it. I liken the first year of law school to boot camp for your brain. They kind of strip you down and put you back together again. So the second and third year were fine. Third year, I actually learned how to have fun. So law school was great. I had a great experience, except the first year. The first year was really intense.
Well, I guess they had beat some of that bartending and travel out of you before they could make you into a lawyer.
Yeah, they had to teach me how to adult that first year.
When you graduated from Golden Gate, what was your first legal job?
My first legal job was actually in a family law attorney office. And I discovered pretty quickly that family law was not for me.
When did you start moving towards the criminal practice?
Well, I was an intern for the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, which was very interesting because Kamala was there at that time. And it was pretty obvious from interactions with her that, let's just say it's not a surprise to me that she's vice president. And I dabbled in some other things like personal injury, as I said, the family law, and none of that really spoke to me. And so I started coming back to criminal. And eventually Javelle and I, actually through restaurant connections, met up, and she was generous enough to give me a job.
Now, you've been practicing for a while. What do you really like about practicing law?
I like being able to help people make a difference, be part of change instead of talking about it. I know this sounds a little strange. I do like the personal interaction of going to court. There's just never really a dull day. So I would say those things.
Now, as part of your practice, you've been involved with the Alameda County Bar Association. What sort of things are you doing with the Alameda County Bar Association?
Well, right now I'm working on juvenile justice programming, talking about racial justice or injustice and how that works in terms of the juvenile setting. They put on a lot of great content. We're constantly looking for ideas that can help our fellow attorneys learn.
If a young person was thinking about a career choice, coming out of a college, would you recommend that person to go into or at least give some serious consideration to a career in law?
I would, if their overriding concern was not money. I think if you want to do good work, then I would definitely say go ahead and be a lawyer. But if you're looking for the money, you're probably going to have a quality of life that is not so great.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who decides, I do want to get into law. I want to have a career in law. What advice would you give to that person?
Find an area in the law that really speaks to you, because you are going to be working a lot.
Before we came on this Zoom call, you and I were talking a little bit about the business of practicing law and how in your firm you have a separation where you do the legal work and your partner really kind of handles most of the business aspects of it. I'm wondering what you think of that, if that sort of model is working out for yourself.
It's great for me because that's one less thing that I have to worry about, and I can really focus on what's happening with the caseload and what's happening with the cases. So for me, it's great. When you
and your firm get new business, do you do most of the interviewing of clients, or does somebody else do that?
I do most of that. I would say, I don't want to put a number on it, but I have the overwhelming amount of communications with clients comes through me.
And that starts right from the beginning?
Yes.
Is there anything that you know now that you really wished you knew before you started into the endeavor of practicing law?
Learn how to take a big breath, because as I said, sometimes things happen and you're literally like, what? Okay. So you just have to take a breath and, kind of reset yourself a little bit, but very quickly.
This podcast is presented and supported by the Alameda County Bar Association. ACBA provides a wide range of certified continuing legal educational programs, networking opportunities, and social events. If you are a member of ACBA, thank you. If you are not yet a member, we hope you will consider joining this organization that is by, for, and in support of practicing attorneys. And now, back to our interview. What do you think is the best advice that you've ever received?
Move cases along.
What do you mean by that?
I worked very briefly for a civil rights firm. They also did a lot of elder abuse, which I did, which was very interesting and quite sad, obviously. And the the lead guy, who was very intelligent, said one of the most important things that you can do as an attorney is make sure you're moving your cases along so that people can get on with their lives. You know, for us, it's our job, but for a lot of people, this is something that is consuming them, and they're scared and they're stressed out, and you want to keep those cases moving along to help people with their peace of mind and with their lives.
What aspect of practicing law do you think is your strong suit?
I would have to say probably the interpersonal skills part, being able to have a conversation with someone. I'm not very hot-headed, so I'm content to just kind of let things roll off my back and try to focus on the big picture here, which is helping my clients. So I think that's a skill actually I learned in the restaurant industry. Like, you can't get upset every time someone doesn't get, whatever they want. You just got to kind of let it roll off your back and continue on about your business, Do
you think that some of that bartending experience kind of helps you out in that circumstance?
Definitely. You deal with a lot of different personalities at varying points of behavior. And
intoxication, perhaps?
Yeah. It's always interesting when I used to have to cut someone off and they'd argue with me. And it's like, you're arguing with me. So I'm like, that's not making me not want to cut you off. Like, either way, I'm going to cut you off. Like, but you have to do it in a way where you don't have people losing their minds at the bar. That's not good for anyone.
Do you think that the legal system works? Do you think that it's a fair system?
I don't think it's fair. I think that people like OJ that can buy a good defense are always going to do better. I think there's a reason why rich people tend to do better in our justice system. I do think that sometimes it works. I went to school in Thailand. I took a semester during law school in Thailand, and I did comparative criminal law. And we actually had an opportunity to go to the big prison there outside of Bangkok. And we got to talk to some of the inhabitants there. And a lot of them were there on drug charges because they just have no tolerance for that in Asia. None. Zero. And they told us about their experience in the criminal system. And basically, you got arrested. You weren't given a translator. You weren't given a lawyer. They said, well, you can take the deal that we give you, or you can face the death penalty. It's totally up to you. And each and every one of them took the deal they were offered because, of course, when they say death penalty for drugs in Asia, they mean death penalty for drugs in Asia. So I think in that way, our system is very favorable, but I do think that there's work to be done, a lot of it.
If you couldn't be a lawyer, is there some other job or profession that you think would interest you or that you would choose to do?
Yeah, I'd probably be a bartender. I enjoyed it.
Do you think you have some kind of a superpower? Or if you don't, what kind of superpower would you like to have?
I don't have a superpower. I wish I did. If I had a superpower, I'd probably want to fly. I think that would be really fun. And then I could surf the skies.
What sort of things keep you...
drafts and all that.
Well, maybe you should take up hang gliding.
I don't know. My grandfather used to hang glide and got into a very bad accident. So I'll skip the hang gliding. I'll stay in the water.
What sort of things keep you up at night?
Trying to do the best for my clients. I really do want the best for them. And so sometimes I'll wake up at night and I'll start thinking about cases and this, that, and the other thing. So, yeah.
Let's say you came into some real money, $3 or $4 billion. What if anything would you do differently in your life?
I would probably do a lot more philanthropy. I would probably start some organizations that were focused on education and racial justice. That's probably what I do.
Has practicing law impacted your personal life or fit into your personal life? And how have those two things worked with each other?
Well, pre-COVID, there's pre-COVID and during COVID. Pre-COVID, it was definitely a lot more of a balance of doing physical activities that I like to do. So like surfing, snowboarding, all those things. When I was a bartender, I could go snowboarding like midweek when no one was there. So it was a little different. Now during COVID, things have changed a little because everything is more remote. But overall, I wouldn't say it had that much of a personal impact.
So you've managed to kind of have sort of work-life balance?
I find that in the legal world, it ebbs and flows. Like sometimes you're just really slammed with time-sensitive things, and you don't really have a lot of work-life balance during those times. And then sometimes there are those moments that you get to kind of like exhale a little bit and do more of the things that you like to do. So I would say that's something of an ebb and flow with the legal world. It really depends on what's going on in cases.
Well, I have one more question, and then I would like to see if anybody who is on our Zoom call has a question or a comment about anything that we've discussed, or a question specifically for you, or something that they'd like to comment on. But my final question to you is, if you had a magic wand and there was one thing in the world that you could change, the legal world or the world in general, what would that one thing be?
Whew. Wow. I would like to see more, I know this sounds kind of trite, but I would like to see a lot more equality globally. I mean, Louis, you went to India. I mean, there's some people that live a certain way and there's some people that live a different way. I would like to see a closer balance to less of the 1%ers and more of everyone just having what they need and having a good life.
Well, Jason, you've always come up with a question. Are you there?
Yep. Nope. I just had to unmute myself.
Good.
Thanks so much for doing this, Manjula, on pretty short notice, too. Having been in the DA's office previously and now working in criminal defense, is there anything in particular that you feel works to one side's advantage or another? And I'll let you elaborate on that.
Well, let me think on that for a second, because yes, I do. I do think that to a certain extent with government resources, I do think that there's kind of an advantage to those institutions that have the full weight of government resources behind them.
Taylor Mowdy, I know that you have a question.
I had a question, non-legal perhaps, is that as a previous bartender, what cocktail would best convey the practice of law? Would it be the old-fashioned or the dark and stormy?
I would say the Negroni.
The Negroni.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know what I'm having this week.
Lots of flavor, bitter, but also a little bit sweet.
All right. Well, that sounds good. It gives me some ideas for the weekend. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, I was wondering if you could enlighten me as to what's in a
sweet vermouth. So that's like the sweetness of when you do good in your law practice. Gin, which is floral and can be spicy, which is kind of the excitement we get. And then Campari, which can be a little bitter. We've all been a little bitter about some cases at some point. So those three ingredients, and then you stir them. I like to have them on one of those big fancy cubes you see, and then you garnish with a little orange peel. Delicious.
Well spoken, like a true bartender. Renee Perko, do you have a question or a comment for Manjula?
I guess my question for you is, you have maybe some very difficult situations, and how do you help your clients? Do you ever pray for them?
Yes, and sometimes out in the water, that's where I go to kind of like decompress and think about things. And I'll think about them in the water, and I'll think about like, whatever universe kind of body is out there, and I send them my thoughts.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Renee. Do you pray for your clients? And if so, how's that gone?
Well, I'm a city attorney. And
okay.
So no, what I meant by that is my client is a city, really, and the city council. So I have had, what comes to my mind mostly is very difficult opposing counsel. Sometimes, there's a lot going on there. And I certainly pray for our police officers, everybody, our first responders, people to make the right decisions, and pray for myself to make sure I'm doing a good job for my city. I take it really seriously. So, just like you, it's a lot of times, a lot of things are on your mind, and it's good to get out. I don't surf, but I run a lot, kind of. So anyways, but I really have enjoyed just listening to, the humanity and all of that you've shared. You've spoken really more about how law has touched you and how you are influencing, our area. We all have, just not as officers of the court, but just as people. It's a good profession for us to help others. So it does take out a lot out of us. So I do think prayer is a way to help at least me along. Yeah. That's a long answer.
No, thanks, Renee.
Yeah.
Janice Stillman, I see that you have a very interesting picture up. I'm wondering if you have a comment or a question.
Yeah, that's a picture of me and my sisters. I haven't changed it yet. Thank you so much. It's interesting. I just passed the bar.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. That's great.
And I've been deciding if I want to go. When I graduated law school, I interned at the Marin Public Defender's Office, and I really like criminal defense too. So this is kind of helpful to make up my decision if that's where I want to go back or if I wanted to try other areas. So I really liked your answer on that.
Helen, I see that you have just signed into the chat with a question.
I would love to know where your favorite place to surf is in the Bay Area, region.
Gosh, that's an interesting question. My home break is Pacifica, which is down Lindemar, just down south. That was fun. I was actually out this morning. I did semi-dawn patrol. Dawn patrol is where you're out at first light. I didn't get out at first light. I got out like around 7:30. That's kind of my local. That's my home break. I love surfing there. There are so many magical places to surf in Northern California, though. One day I was surfing at Montara, which is even further south, and I saw this big, looked like a boil pop up. And of course I was freaking out, like, what is that? And all of a sudden this eyeball shows up, the size of my head, and it was a whale. And I was like, okay, wow, that's really cool. And then another little shape pops up, and it's her calf. And she was, maybe 20 feet away from me, and she's teaching him how to slap on the water. They do this thing where they slap on the water. And that was really awesome. In Ocean Beach, I've been there, and there've been dolphins surfing in the waves. So I guess my favorite place to surf locally is wherever the surf is best on that given day.
Manjula Martin, thank you so much for joining us today for the Alameda County Bar Association's podcast in conjunction with the Love Thy Lawyer podcast. And I appreciate everyone else who has been on the Zoom call as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye.
That's it for today's edition of Love Thy Lawyer in collaboration with the Alameda County Bar Association. Please visit the lovethylawyer.com website where you can find links to all of our episodes. Also, please visit the Alameda County Bar Association website at acbanet.org, where you can find more information about our support of the legal profession, promoting excellence in the legal profession, and facilitating equal access to justice. Special thanks to ACBA staff and members Kaylin Dalen, Saeed Randall, Hadassah Hayashi, Vincent Tong, and Jason Leong. Thanks to Joel Katz for music, Brian Matheson for technical support, and Tracy Harvey. I'm Louis Goodman.
Not off the top of my head. Yeah, I'm sorry, not off the top of my head, but I think everyone that's watching has had one of those situations. Where
I'm quite sure.
It's in your mind, there's crickets, and you have to, kind of, kick the brain into gear again.